Hey, we're live. Just like that. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how are you doing, DK?
He's Tom Reed in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Dejan Kovacevic here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Tom has, while I set up the rest of this file before we go live, Tom has a story that's literally just going up right now on the site about the Penguins and Red Wings from a decade ago. And Tom, why don't you share with the readers, or the viewers, I should say, please, what that is and how they can find it.
Well, yeah. First of all, I hope everyone's a subscriber and watching and reading all the stuff that's on DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is a topic that's kind of fascinated me for a little while now, since I've come over to Pittsburgh and working here. This Pittsburgh team, obviously, so much success, 15 years straight in the playoffs, 3 Stanley Cups, all these great players, 3 legendary players, could be in the Hall of Fame. And I started thinking, what team is kind of like this? What team can the Penguins learn from what they went through? And there's only one team. It's the Red Wings. You hear the Blackhawks sometimes. You hear the Kings turn there. No, the Red Wings made the playoffs 25 straight years. They even were so proud of it, they made a commemorative logo they put on center ice. They had the longest current streak of any major sports team, and they spent a lot of first round draft picks and capital to keep that thing going, to keep it going. And then when it collapsed, And the Wings have been out of the playoffs for 5 consecutive years. They were dead last year, and they've had no luck in the lottery, and they are just not a contender right now. Was able to speak to former general manager and still active board of governor Jimmy Devellano, and he says he sees the parallels to a T. He says the Penguins are doing the right thing. You got to keep going, because if you start tearing it down now, it's going to be ugly anyway. So why not maximize your chances to win in this window? Talk to some other people. They kind of said the same thing. You got to, when you have the horses, you got to ride them till the finish, because you just never know if you can get it one more kick at the can. And again, when it happens, it's going to happen, and it's probably going to be ugly for a couple years.
We're going to get started with the regular portion of our show, the one that ends up getting podcasted and sent out to everybody right now. And for that, I'm going to take another sip of this iced tea. We make this iced tea at home. It's like cut up lemons and stuff. It's like a lot of work, Tom, but it's really worth it.
So really is this something we're going to start selling on the site? This is also DK Sports.
just like a brazen markup.
It's merch. Yeah. It's merch.
Yeah. I know of a certain retailer in town who would just go to Sam's Club and buy a bunch of stuff and then just bring it into the shop and just put another $2 on it. I'm not kidding, because I've seen this individual go around with a shopping cart.
Hey, we're all entrepreneurs in our own way.
Yes, some more innovative than others. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mike's Beer Bar Afternoon Ask Anything. I'm Dejan Kovacevic in Pittsburgh. He's Tom Reed in Columbus. And Tom, I did not hesitate to identify you there. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together here. Like, well, hang on a second. Who's that other guy?
Yes, that's fine.
Here's how this works. You put down your questions, your comments, your criticisms, whatever you got, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everything works pretty easily. Just share with us what you got there, and I'll read them out loud, and Tom and I will go at them. And here's one for Tom. It comes from Cliff that says, shout out to Cam Johnson and the Suns. I have no idea what this means, but it sounds NBA-ish, Tom.
Yeah, I mean the Suns finished off the Lakers last night, and LeBron James, Anthony Davis, a Laker team that I got to say actually quit. They quit on LeBron. They're out. I think this is the first time LeBron's ever been out in the first round, and the NBA playoffs have been terrific, much like the NHL playoffs. But yeah, it's I can't say you can't totally see it's coming, because the Lakers had to go through play-in games just to get in the playoffs this year. And you do wonder about the future of that team with a superstar who is, I believe, 35 now. We'll see. I'm sure LeBron will use this as a motivation to try to get back and himself get another run at a title.
Let's see what else we got here. Cliff says that Cam Johnson is a Pittsburgh kid. I don't know who Cam Johnson is.
Plays for the Suns.
I know, but what would be the Pittsburgh thing? I don't know.
He's apparently from Pittsburgh. He must have some kind of Pittsburgh ties. I'll look it up as we go through there. But yes, okay. The Suns were terrific, and it's kind of cool to see this year in the NBA. Some of the smaller market teams, New York and LA. Well, New York's always out, but LA's out. It'll be interesting to see who ends up winning the title this year because it's wide open.
Ed says, "Hello, DK and crew. Best sports in the Berg. Who would you expose in the expansion draft?" I mean, nobody ideally, but I think if you're looking at the fringe guys on the Penguins roster or the fringe-ish guys for expansion draft purposes, you're probably looking at Jason Zucker. If you look at the different alignments that are there and the number of forwards that you can protect versus the number of defensemen, you definitely want to be taking the option where you can protect the greater amount of defensemen because of some of the players that they have there that you definitely would not want to lose. And plus, we just saw a series, Tom, in which the Penguins wingers in particular, were kind of beaten into submission by the bigger, badder Islanders, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. It's going to be very interesting. I'll be very interested to see how that first line is constructed next season. In particular, to see if it comes back with status quo, or if they decide to put a little bit more weight. And when I don't mean fighter or anything like that, but just a little bit more weight, especially come playoff time. DK, I got the research. Cam Johnson from Moon Township, apparently played a little bit at Pitt and then went on to North Carolina. So those
that's that Cam Johnson.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
idea.
That was the same one we were referring to. I knew
this
the one from
way
Pitt.
Before my time of
Okay,
so there you go.
Okay, I knew the one from Pitt. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Cam Johnson, when he was at Pitt, was local. Okay.
Yep. There you go.
Boy, the basketball segment of this show has fizzled badly. Let's see. Let's see what else we can do here. Come on, send us some questions that have to do with the teams that we cover here. Robert Fulton says, "I believe Brian Hayes is the real deal, but I'm afraid that by the end of the season, he will get traded." Oh, no. We need to sign him and Reynolds to an extension. No. Why?
The guy's like in his second year, isn't he?
Yeah, not even.
He's outstanding.
Not even. But the point is, okay, Robert, I'm glad you brought this up. This was the topic of my podcast earlier today about how Pirates fans, every time they see something good, they start worrying about what's going to happen in 2027. Okay? That's just basically what this fan base has become. What's going to happen in 6 years? And we don't worry about how we're going to put our kids through college. Okay? Like 6 years from now, but we worry about the composition of the Pirates roster. Here's how this works. The Pirates hold Brian Hayes' rights for the next 6 years. 6. That's 3 years of stamped mandatory pay, meaning you pay whatever you want as the team, and then an additional 3 years of arbitration through which you'd never let him go through arbitration. That's 6 years. Why would they trade him when he's part of this future? I don't know, Tom, that when you go through a building process like this, or rebuild, or whatever anyone wants to call it, that teams ever do a good enough job of relaying that to the public. Because I hear from Pirates fans all the time who are like, what's going on here? They're just trading everybody just to trade them? Like, what are they actually doing? How can teams do a better job of getting this message out? Anybody?
Well, let's be honest with you. They've had a history of getting rid of guys, right? That's when I did those stories on the Vanderbilt pitchers. They're like, "Oh, these guys sound great; they'll be gone." And I think the Penguin or the Pirate fans are a little bit beaten down, especially when you have the other two teams in the city that do everything they can. It looks like to keep their players around. I don't want to say I don't blame them because I don't follow the game as passionately as certainly you do. And you just the idea that you care so much about baseball. You said it sounds like when reading your stuff and listening to it, it's your favorite sport. Am I wrong? You love baseball.
I mean, I try to do the thing, where you love the sport that you're right in front of at that moment. Baseball really, for me, just goes back to my, early childhood and everything. The Pirates were the first team that I ever followed. Baseball was the first sport that I ever followed. Yes.
See how we're getting see for our viewers how we're getting down to digging deep layers of DK here. We're finding about DK as a child.
Yeah, that was some significant stuff there.
Oh, just hey, we're only 10 minutes in, buddy.
Oh, geez. Craig says Robert does not listen to the Daily Shots podcasts. Shame, says Craig. I don't know. I mean, it's just a thing. Let's see what else we got here. I saw one up here about Denny says, my man Denny Colamarino says, hey, Dejan, having had a few suspensions in my own career, how does a first-time offender get 4 games and a repeat offender like Tom Wilson get the same or less? I'd love to give you a hockey-type answer to this, Denny, but I have a feeling that this is all way, way, way more personality-based. George Parros was an enforcer. When George Parros communicates with Wilson or Ryan Reeves, he's communicating with his brethren. He's right there. He's seeing those guys. But when Mark Scheifele, one of those pretty boy skilled guys, steps out of line, then you got to go after Scheifele. And that's all that we saw here. I mean, Ryan Reeves is holding a clump of Ryan Graves' hair in his hand, and he got 2 games for it. Scheifele gets 4 games for trying to prevent a goal.
That was a weird play. That's I've never seen that one before. And I'm talking about the Scheifele hit. I've never seen that look like right out of the NFL where a punt returner doesn't call for the fair catch and just gets blasted as he touches the ball. It's weird. I understand why he got suspended, but I think I could honestly tell you I can almost argue Scheifele's case on the play as well. I think the league kind of got it right. But it's a weird one.
I think they might have gotten it right if the context had been set, Tom. I mean, that's kind of the point. I mean, there's, you can't.
What context in the NHL?
Yeah, you can't.
There's no context.
You do 4 games for that, but you do 2 games for what Ryan Reeves did, and you go no games for what Tom Wilson did in New York. I mean, you've got yourself a real problem with this guy, with Parros. You have a real problem. He's saying it's okay for the enforcers to behave this way, but not you, guy who averages point a game in Winnipeg and has 0 history whatsoever. And I watched some of Scheifele's
it's pretty good
press gathering today, and he handled himself really well, and he just went, what are you going to do? I wanted to knock the guy off the puck, He was really genuinely surprised by the thing. That he had no history, never played the game that way. He'd actually heard from some Montreal players who were saying, hey, look, dude, we get it. We know who you are.
It goes back to, and it's always bothered me, and I know it's probably never going to change. There was an injury on the play. If there's no injury on the play, it's nothing.
That's the other thing, yeah.
It takes injuries. Again, like you were saying about, pulling clumps out of his hair, having his knee on his head or his neck. He wasn't injured, really. I mean, Ryan Graves took a couple seconds to gather himself. Now, if he's injured, maybe that's different. It's the same with the Panarin situation in New York. If Panarin had been seriously injured, he would have gotten a suspension. But the league's just like, well, whatever.
Outcome-based adjudication is what it is here. Kevin Kramer says, my take while watching the other Stanley Cup playoff games, 3 things the teams that are playing in the second round have that the Penguins don't need. They finish every check. They have a net front presence. And they have average or better goaltending. You know what, Kevin? If the Penguins just had the third of your list there, we'd still be talking about them in Boston right now.
You want to guess which one it is in DK's mind? Well, everybody's mind, actually, I would hope.
Finishing every check, finishing every check is something that's really kind of gone out in hockey, and that's because the analytics show that a lot of times by going out of your way to finish checks, you're taking yourself out of position, and thus hurting your team's chances of sustaining possession. And that's.
Well, I think you know what it is. I think what the Islanders and some of these teams do well is they make you compete for space. I think your point, DK, is sometimes guys. I just always think of the old Capitals back in the early '90s trying to run the Penguins through the boards, just going way out of their way to hit guys.
Wear them down.
Yeah, today's game I think is more about taking away space, getting in the way. I love the fact that I can't remember if it was Hextall or Burke. One of them kept referring to the interference, holding, and there was another word that they just weren't afraid to say what the Islanders were doing. And that's just the way the game's played. That's the way the game's unfortunately played in the playoffs. It always has been, and unfortunately, it probably always will be.
My man Paulie here, he says, how do you see Jalen Samuels and Derek Watt being used by the Steelers? Well, one of the more interesting things to have emerged from OTAs has been the alleged revival of Derek Watt. I will only believe the utilization of a fullback in the Pittsburgh offense when I see it happen in anger in a real game. It's interesting that that's one of the options that's been considered and executed as well, again, in OTAs. But there's also been discussion that Derek Watt would be part of the process of making sure that holes are created for Najee Harris. To me, that kind of makes sense, Tom, because if you're putting as many eggs as you're apparently going to put into Najee's basket here, why not build up all the weapons at your disposal to do that, including, by the way, I should mention that the wide receivers themselves were talking about being more involved, more engaged in the blocking game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we heard a lot of that Derek, like you said, we thought Derek Walker was going to play last year. He did have some injury situations, but my goodness, what they barely used him on the offensive side of the ball. They basically signed him to have back what he does very well in special teams. But I agree.
They paid a lot for special teams.
Yeah, well, yeah, make use of the guy. And if you are going to really run the ball as they're talking about doing, it would certainly help to occasionally have a fullback on the field. We see other teams do it. It's not like it's some revolutionary concept anymore. San Francisco's done it for years. We see Baltimore do it. I have no issue with them trying to especially in short yardage plays. And the Steelers were so bad last year in short yardage plays.
Embarrassing. Like literally embarrassing. Like you were embarrassed for them. As
bad as the overall numbers were, I think what was worse, just like they could not pick up a 3rd and 1.
No.
And it was insane.
Here's one for Tom.
Oh boy.
CMU Pens fan says, since John Tortorella has left and now Seth Jones wants out, why do so many players want no part of the Columbus Blue Jackets? It's a long list, Tom. We're way past the point of coincidence.
We actually talked extensively about this the other day on the podcast, 66 to 87 podcast. I think it's different things. I think in this case, he sees the guys that have gone before him and say, if I'm going to sign, this is going to be my big money contract. I want to be somewhere where I can compete. Well, you know what? They're not competing anymore. They're going to have to blow it up and start over again. Some of the other guys, I think there were different things. Panarin just wanted to go to New York. No big deal there. I think there were some issues with some management and contract negotiations. When you look at both Anderson and Dubois, which were killers to lose 2 homegrown guys, that's the issue. Panarin not being from the organization, going elsewhere, that's one thing. When you have 2 homegrown players who say, I don't want to be here anymore, basically, and I'm maybe putting some words into Anderson's mouth, but Dubois certainly wanted out, and I think Anderson did too. I don't know if it's the city. I think it's maybe more of the organization. And as good point here by Chris, or I'm sorry, whoever was the actually asked a question. This was not torts related. because Torts is gone.
This one's different.
Yeah, this is but I do think it's a lot of just organizational stuff, and not just the coach, not just the general manager, just all of it. And it's a shame because they were finally doing something good on the ice. They made the playoffs 4 straight years. All the other years, you could expect it. You could expect it when the team sucked. I want out. I don't want to be here.
Rick says, what young Pirates prospects could we potentially see called up come September? Right now, if you're the Pirates, your number one concern is the same concern that we're now seeing spread all across Major League Baseball, and that is that there is an unprecedented number of injuries, and not just pitching injuries, but everybody. And that's because last year you only had a 60-game schedule in the majors, and in the minors you had no baseball at all. And as a result, we're seeing players, again, not just pitchers, because that's the one that you would kind of be able to brace for, where you got to manage more innings, and that you got to take care of elbows and shoulders. But even with hitters in the wrist, look at Brian Hayes going down with the wrist injury in the second game. These are things that maybe are avoidable if Brian Hayes plays a full 2020. Which young prospects would come up? I would look toward O'Neal Cruz, who is now hitting very well. He's the 6'7" shortstop in Altoona. He's putting the ball out routinely. I was going to say Travis Swaggerty, but he's now done for the year. One of the things about the Pirates system, and the reason that this question is a little bit tough to answer, is that most of their better talent, the talent that would actually be exciting to you, is in the lower minors. Whereas what's in Indianapolis right now is not. is not. And that's a big, big difference.
Is that always the case, DK? Usually your better prospects are AA?
No. This is a case of a new general manager, Ben Cherington, needing to rebuild his system. Not rebuild, build, because these guys never built it, the guys before him. And make sure that you're doing so with high ceiling talent. Well, you don't do that by bringing in AAA guys. That's how you make the Garrett Cole trade. And you say, oh, here's guys that are quote unquote major league ready. Okay, that's not getting yourself high ceiling guys. So by very nature, you were going to have, for example, the Greensboro Grasshoppers were going to be one of the more loaded teams in the system, and they are. The high A team is where they stacked most of their pitchers. Altoona is where they put a bunch of their position players and a couple of their pitchers, notably Roansy Contreras. Now, Contreras is somebody that I probably should mention, even though he's currently in AA, he probably shouldn't be. Contreras is ready for AAA ball, and if he does well there, I could see him also being someone who would get a September call up here. Let's see what else we got here. Eric asks a Pitt question. That's going to be tough for me. What kind of year do you expect from Kenny Pickett? Bring this one in for Chris Carter, and he's going to have a much better answer for you than I will. I'm not wild about Kenny Pickett. I see massive inconsistencies in his game. To me, he strikes me as one of those guys that looks like he has an NFL type form, or has the NFL build or follow through or whatever, but doesn't come up with anywhere near that level of results. Let's see what else we got here. Tom stayed totally quiet on the Pitt question. Like Tom's like, way quiet.
I read all of Chris's stories. I just know he's coming back, which I guess is a good sign, because they weren't expecting him back. So maybe he's a little better this year.
Mr. Eric says, how much will the Steelers' offense change this year besides having a run game? Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The Steelers' offense, I think, is going to change a lot. And it won't just be the running game. I think you're going to see differences in the passing game as well. When you're talking about a wide zone blocking scheme, you're talking about the offensive line spreading out and going into different areas of the field and protecting the areas. It's not so much the old James Harrison beat the man across from you mentality. It's find a space, own the space, make sure we get that space whenever it's our time to have the ball there. It's a different approach. I could see the Steelers doing things in their passing game, which, by the way, also will include and involve Najee Harris, who did line up at wide receiver and talk to us about it openly through the rookie minicamp and OTAs. That's going to be interesting in and of itself, Tom. But to me, it's going to be defined ultimately by how effectively the Steelers can get the ball downfield, and I mean down the field. Let's see what else we got here.
Yeah, I agree. You would like to see them do that a little bit more this year. And Roethlisberger kind of mentioned coming back into another year. He now has complete trust in his arm. You would think they would throw the ball a lot deeper, and you would think Chase Claypool would perhaps and James Washington as merge as deep ball threats. I'm anxious to see, going back to the first point, I'm anxious to see how the wide zone blocking scheme works here. It's worked very well in Cleveland. It's been good in Baltimore, and a lot of teams just don't see it that much. Sometimes it's a feast or famine play. You could have 2 or 3 plays that go for 1 yard, and the next play goes for 60. And it really, you have to have athletic linemen that can get to the second level, and we'll see if the Steelers have that.
Daniel says, hey, boys, can you come up with a few names who could fit the big, fast, and skilled player that the Penguins need? Well, I'll start this by saying, and this is not someone who's available, but when he was available, Tom Reed was saying, I can't believe that the Penguins don't come after Josh Anderson. I remember you telling me that because he was available out of Columbus, and the Penguins could have had him for probably not all that much, not all that heavy of a price. And the questions about him were kind of, everyone knew what he could do. And he's done it for the most part in Montreal.
Yeah, really good player. Similar to, I hate bringing this name up because it's always brings the wrong connotations, but he plays the game clean. A clean version of Tom Wilson is what he is. Big, heavy player, but can really skate, gets to checks, is good around the net, has been a nice addition in Montreal. Boy, I don't even know. I'm trying to think. These players are so hard to find. That's why this is a tough question. But, yeah, Anderson would have been my first pick, DK.
Mark Crowley asks, when will the other shoe drop on the substances debate in MLB? Well, first of all, it's no longer a debate, Mark. They have now put into place what their rules are regarding this. At least they've begun doing 10-game suspensions in the minor leagues. And for anybody who doesn't know what Mark's talking about here, they're talking about there's been a lot of doctoring and substances by pitchers on the baseball to increase spin rate, which has become a big thing with advanced analytics. Well, if so-and-so spins the ball at X amount of times, then it's harder to hit. And as we've seen this year in baseball, it's harder to hit, period. Everyone except Adam Frazier can't hit anymore. And like what Frazier's doing, I don't know, but Frazier has become like the king of baseball as far as defeating spin rate. But it's too difficult. The median batting average across the majors right now, Tom, is like 237. I mean, it's a joke.
Everybody's Rob Gear.
It's or Dave Kingman. Yeah, it's like these guys like, and that's what it is. It's the all or nothing, because when they do launch into it, it goes. We used to make fun of Dave Kingman when I was a kid. It's like, oh yeah, you're Dave Kingman, because he would hit like 214 and hit like 50 bombs, and you're like, Dave Kingman's the dude, man. He doesn't care if he strikes out.
I would hate to be an infielder in the modern day ball, because you'd be falling asleep.
You're
the next
bored.
thing, occasionally you get one hit to you. But yeah, it's weird.
Well, it's interesting, and it was a New York reporter of all people that yesterday was pointing out that the same day that this news emerged, that Garrett Cole suddenly goes out pitching for the Yankees, and he's been openly accused of this, the substance thing, and he just gets shelled. And everyone wonders, well, what happened to Garrett Cole when he left Pittsburgh? What happened when he left Pittsburgh? I don't know. Maybe Pittsburgh wasn't teaching him how to doctor the ball. You know what I'm saying?
Wasn't this an argument with him and his former UCLA teammate that was Trevor Bauer? Haven't they been going back and forth on this?
Yeah. But Bauer's been accused of doing it as well. You know who else has been accused? And there's been footage to support it. Just so it doesn't sound like I'm playing Homer here, is Richard Rodriguez, the Pirates closer, who's been phenomenal. I mean, they've shown still shots of him reaching into his glove and all kinds of this and that, and some kind of dark foreign substance right in this area. Look, okay, I'm not sitting here levying the accusation. It's been there. It was actually brought up by St. Louis's manager publicly at one point this year regarding Rodriguez. So I'll tell you what, man, you've never seen a sea change in mid-season of any sport the way you would see one in baseball if all of a sudden they started significantly busting everybody who's doctoring the baseball.
I've enjoyed this baseball talk today.
I can tell. You're really into it. Mark says, why can't I super chat? Want to throw you guys some money for the content. I don't even know what this means, but I like it, Tom. What's he mean?
I don't know, buddy.
Throw us some money via the super chat. Actually, Mark is on YouTube, and I think super chat is a feature that we haven't activated yet. Now, if it involves money and sending us money, we're going to get right on this. We'll
be right after this. We'll be going right over to the super chat.
We might even halt this particular program in midstream. Brent says Kennywood or Cedar Point debate. I've never been to Cedar Point, so mine's easy.
I've never I've been to both places.
Mm-hmm.
I like Kennywood. I just my wife's from that area, so I've always liked going to Kennywood with them.
I know this, the older coasters, and this is going to sound really like a cliched response to this, but to me it's accurate. I've been to other amusement parks where they have the more modern coasters, and to me, they don't feel dangerous. Like, they're so smooth and they're so quiet, and even the ones that take you upside down and twist you around like a pretzel, I don't ever feel like my life is imperiled. And I want to feel like my life is imperiled when I'm on a coaster, Tom. Like, and when I'm on the Jackrabbit or I'm on the Thunderbolt at Kennywood, I'm convinced that this is it. This is when all that wood is all those 2x4s after a century of standing there are finally going to give out. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Now, have you ever bungee jumped?
No, I have not bungee jumped.
I've parachuted out of planes, ridden roller coasters, not a ton of them. The bungee jump is the closest thing to the most terrifying thing ever, because you know that it's going to catch you, but it really is the dream that you're falling and you wake up with, ah! So the bungee jump was terrifying. Parachutes was cool, but didn't do that much for me.
Dan comes in that he would also super chat 100% and that he would throw money this way. This is the best episode ever, Tom.
Yeah, no question.
Lewis says the way that I fly out of my seat on the Jackrabbit is enough for me. Hang on a second, Lewis. Hang on. Let's set the guidelines here. Not that I would ever recommend this, because I don't want anybody else's life on my hand. But when I was doing Jackrabbit, and when I was getting real serious about Jackrabbit, and anybody who's a Kennywood lifer knows this, you got to wait for the back. You got to wait for the back row. Okay, and the line's always a little longer. That's why they have the extra, the yellow paint down there or whatever to make sure that you can stand for that last row, because there's that last element of torque that kind of throws you up out of your seat. And you did not hear this on this program, whether you threw money this direction or not. There, no seatbelt. So what we would do is, the Jackrabbit's going down. This is before the double dip. You get to the double dip, and the thing, you swear you're going to die. You swear you're going to end up in that ravine. But it's really something. Okay, I did not bring any of this up.
This is an unbelievable Ask Anything today.
Terrible. Chris Dolnack says, best Kennywood rides as a kid, Thunderbolt, Turnpike cars, which are gone now, and Braddock's defeat train ride. The train's there. Train's been modified a lot. Turnpike's just totally gone. What do you think of the Thunderbolt, Tom?
Oh boy, God, it's been so long. I don't know. I can't remember all of them, to be honest with you. Honestly, I can't remember.
It's the Thunderbolt. It's the biggest thing there.
I know. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Budgie
Dan says the Thunderbolt is better than anything, and I would happen to agree with that here. Don't we have sports stuff? How did we end up doing this?
They're loving it. They just love ask anything about coasters. That'll have to be a certain day.
Oh, wait. No. I know what happened, Tom. Somebody suggested that they were going to be sending us money for this fine programming, and like everybody bailed. Oh, I'm not paying these guys anything. This isn't nearly that good. Moneybags comes in and says, what player on the 53-man roster last year is in danger of being cut this year? Well, I mean, I can kind of duck that one easily and say it's going to be some special teams guy that you never heard of or whatever. But I think that when you're bringing in a running back the caliber of Najee Harris, and then the Steelers went out and picked up Kalen Ballage, who's not going to have anywhere near the impact. He's also got some special teams experience. That the guy you're looking at that might be in trouble would be someone like Jalen Samuels, who did get onto the field a lot and who was, at least at a couple points in his time in Pittsburgh, an impact player, notably in that one game against the Patriots where he ran up more than 200 all-purpose yards. So it'll be, if you're looking for someone significant, it'll be someone like that. But when you're talking about the 53, you're talking about a lot of guys that nobody's ever even really heard of here. Let's see what else we got here. I thought we'd get more on the Scheifele hit. You know?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Why do hockey hits? Isn't it kind of like an episode of Judge Judy or something where everybody just jumps in because now I've formed an opinion on this and it's a controversial thing and everybody's got to jump in on it, when in fact the percentage of people jumping in on this couldn't care less what happens in the Winnipeg versus Montreal series. You know what I mean?
I do, but I also think for whatever reason, this hit really has really been more polarizing than a lot of them in the past. Again, for some of the things that you mentioned, Scheifele's not that type of player. To charge, well, how in the hell is he going to get there if he doesn't charge? You know what? One of the things I thought about is,
but you say charge, Tom, but he's preventing. He's the reason that he's flying back to the zone.
Right?
Is they want to score an empty net goal.
I'm agreeing with you. It's yeah. How else is he going to get there?
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to take the Thunder.
He said that in his hearing. Why did you think I was flying back there? You know,
if that doesn't end in a train wreck, and somehow one of the things that I've not seen brought up is. And again, we both should say this, and we know it. That thank goodness Evans sounds like he's going to be okay. That's the main thing here. And it was nice that Scheifele said that right at the beginning. Scheifele or Evans has to go on his backhand. Think about that. The technique, you've played hockey, having to go around the net, have to keep his head down. There was a lot scoring that goal. So Scheifele's thinking, if I can just get there, maybe either I hit him as he's shooting or he flubs the shot. And if he flubs the shot, that clip is on every coach screen next September when their players come back. Look at this guy busting his ass to get back. Play.
I guess the part that bugs me, and it came up in the NHL's ruling as well, was they say, well, he didn't make an attempt to poke check the puck. And I hear this, and I've read this so much. It's not mandatory, kids. There's a lot of different ways you can prevent a goal. There's no rule. There's not even a suggestion. There's not even an unwritten rule that says that you have to have your stick out for the poke check. Is it his best chance to prevent the goal? Sure. In that
no, it's not.
Second.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
It is.
No, his best chance is to try to intimidate the guy, and maybe he misses the shot.
Because he sees the footsteps and says, "Whoa, I don't want any part of this."
Right, exactly. And he's on his backhand. That's not an easy play. If he's on the other hand, he may be able to get his body around and shield. I'm literally doing this on the air. This is why we're getting money for our podcast. Might get his body around and maybe shield the hit. He couldn't. He was very vulnerable. Very vulnerable. I'm still thinking it was the right call to suspend him, but I do see the one thing I don't. Here's the one thing that bothers me about the Scheifele defender. Get your head up. How's he going to get his head up? How's Evans going to get his head up? He was completely vulnerable.
It's a backhand wrap. And you know what? Evans showed a lot of guts by trying to score that goal that way.
And he has to score there. There's 50 seconds left. It's not like 5 seconds where he can just hold the puck in the corner and the clock's going to run out. If he doesn't try to score, Winnipeg scores. I'm done. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah, well, Chris Dolnick comes in
with
what if 59, 87, or 17 was hit like that, referring, of course, to Gensel, Crosby, and Rust. I mean, I don't ever think of stuff like that when it comes to these arguments.
I've never seen a play like that.
Nah, neither have I. But it's not about who. The only issue when it comes down to the who in these types of things is history. Because history is weighed openly. They say this out loud by the Department of Player Safety, except, of course, when it's one of George Peros's enforcer buddies here. We have time for just a couple more here. Stephen Shellman says, how has Dwayne Haskins looked so far in practice? Well, he's impressed Ben Roethlisberger. Let's put it that way. Ben Roethlisberger coming up with the best quote by far of these OTAs so far, and saying that Haskins can throw a football through a car wash without getting it wet. I don't know that that's a common phrase that's used in football, but if it wasn't before, it sure should be now. Tom, you're intrigued as well by Dwayne Haskins, aren't you?
I think that he went into a very bad situation. Anytime you go into a situation where the owner wants you because he went to school with your son.
Washington, of course, yeah.
In Washington, yes, Dan Gilbert, who's
the worst.
One of the worst owners in sports. He's right up there with the guy that owns the Knicks and Rangers. He was in a bad situation. The coaching staff didn't want him. The general manager didn't want him. And those guys leave right away. Ron Rivera comes in. Now, not saying that Haskins, it sounds like Haskins has a little bit of growing up to do as far as keeping his nose in the playbook, because that's what as a quarterback, DK, I don't think there's any position in all of sports where you have to be more prepared, right? You're in charge of everything. And I think he's in a good situation now where he can step back, learn for a year from a Hall of Fame quarterback, and maybe we'll see what happens the next time around. The physical tools are there. I think it's just a matter of understanding the concepts of the game.
We will close today with this beauty from Paulie, who says, wait, not this one. This was his Pitt one. Where's the other one here? We haven't doing any more Pitt ones. No offense to Pitt. We're just not particularly well armed to answer them. Paulie says, I can't wait for Pirates fans saying that Bob Nutting does not spend enough for substance, meaning to apply to the baseballs. You know what? The Nutting jokes are really, really stale. That one's okay. It certainly would explain why Garrett Cole got better when he left. Tom, we're going to see a before and after that's going to be the most damning possible thing. And it's in some cases, it's going to be unfair because you're going to see pitchers who will just start struggling, and it won't have anything to do with them being cheaters beforehand, right? But realistically, though, when you're talking about baseball and foreign substances, the common defense to that, and this goes obviously way, way, way back, including before my time, is that, well, Gaylord Perry's in the Hall of Fame, and he would actually openly brag about cutting and scuffing and applying stuff to the ball and whatever. Okay, but that was also 1,000 years ago and whatever, and today is today. And Tom, it's hurting the game. The game sucks.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's just home run or strikeout. Let's go, boys. Get some hits. Let's get some action.
Chris Dolnick actually does get the last word. Who would you replace Gary Bittman with as NHL commissioner? My answer to that one, Tom, is yes. Just yes.
My gosh.
It would be Bill Daly if it happened, though. So I don't know that you would see all that much difference because Daly would keep Colin Campbell and all the rest of the dinosaur crew around. Tom, this was fun.
I loved it.
Except when we strayed, and even when we strayed.
Oh, the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt was wonderful. Thunderbolt was wonderful. Greensboro Grasshoppers were wonderful.
Yeah, I saw you got quite the chuckle out of that nickname.
Yeah, I'm actually. It sparked a question after the show. When we're done here, I got a question for you now. So,
the only question I have is how do we monetize this thing? I'm really intrigued.
You're trying to get to the big super chat.
I'm already on this. Super chat thing here.
Everyone on Super Chat.
Mark Crowley's idea. Mark, get on this. You're the one on YouTube. Tell us how to do this Super Chat thing. We are all over it. And I need to go get a refill here. Tom, we'll talk again next week, man. Thanks.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy.
Thanks to everybody.